We didn't mean for things to get so out of hand. But what else would you expect from people so desperate? Danny and I had met at a basketball camp in the early 2000s. What a couple of nerds like us were doing at a basketball camp, even we didn't know. But both our parents had other troubles to worry about during the summers, so it didn't matter what camps they shipped us off to. Basketball, theater, debate. However, this particular strategy fell into an entirely new realm of desperate when we were both sent to a nature camp up in the mountains. 2 whole weeks of sitting through educational speeches about foraging and nature survival, huffing through team-based challenge games that were probably meant to be fun if everyone weren't so competitive. A few of the counselors volunteering at the site had been going to this camp for decades, even after they had become too old to participate as campers. I didn't believe their infatuation, but after seeing them scream at us for not engaging our abdominal cords during the balance beam challenge while the opposing teams jeered about our inevitable falling, I started to understand. The screaming was part of the tradition. It wouldn't be camp whatever obscure Latin name they could come up with without the constant pressure of failing and disappointing your teammates. If it had only been a competition during the games, I would have been able to gloss over it. However, that same pressure was applied every second of every day. Anything could dock your team's points. Eating unhealthily, walking alone with someone of the opposite sex, snoring. Everything that could be monitored was monitored with excruciating efficiency. If electronics were allowed in the camp, I wouldn't have been surprised to find security cameras spying on the shower rooms. Once when I was picking at the steamed peas on my plate as our table counselor with thick glasses and thicker lips watched me, I gained the courage to ask, "What's the prize at the end of all this? Must be pretty good if everyone is this dedicated." Not only did the counselor laugh, all the other kids surrounding Danny and I threw their heads back and chortled through their whole wheat dinner rolls. "The prize," the counselor said, pushing up her glasses, "is the satisfaction of knowing you did everything you could to help push your team to victory." I couldn't even bring myself to nod in response. These points, this constant monitoring, was all to keep us in check in the guise of a pointless game. Danny could sense my frustration and would have squeezed my hand under the table to calm me down if we hadn't been forced to opposite sides of the table a week ago. "No PDA on my watch," the counselor had told us. Yes, something as simple as a quick high five between a girl and a boy was enough to dock us points. We could sit next to each other as long as we didn't touch each other, but since we didn't know that at the time, we had taken the chance at holding hands during lunch on the first day. They had separated us immediately after catching a glimpse of our fingers nearing each other. Instead, I balled my fist and let my fingernails bite into my palm until we were excused. I couldn't take another week of this. That night was a halfway point bonfire. We all gathered around a moderately sized pile of wood that was hardly taller than my shoulders, while a man named Todd strummed bad road trip songs. Most of the kids sang along. Others made s'mores under the watchful eyes of the counselors to make sure everyone was only taking 1 serving per person. I sat by myself on a log that had fallen into a shadowy part of the clearing. If I could have retired to my bunk, I would have, but attendance was mandatory. I peeled the bark off a stick to keep my hands busy while my mind reeled at the thought of having to stay here one more long week. By the time the bark was completely peeled away, the rest of the campers had found their way to their own logs and were listening intently to flannel-wrapped Todd as he set his instrument aside. "You see, kids," he started, "these woods weren't always here." A few of the counselors had already started rolling their eyes. "Each of these trees started out as a tiny seed, grew all the way into the sky, right where they were planted. But how could something so small become so big and strong? How could something so fragile become the protection that separates us from the rest of the loud, loud world? Well, as you've seen from working together so diligently this past week, it's through nurture and care. It's through freedom to grow just as they are." I could see why the other counselors were rolling their eyes now. "It's by the divine blessing of Mother Nature herself, and all the creatures she's blessed with her power, like the birds and the squirrels and..." He smiled mischievously to himself, "and others that we could never fathom. It's through her nurture and love that made this forest grow. That's one of my favorite parts of this camp, is watching you all nurture each other and help each other grow. I raised my hand. His eyes met mine and his smile faltered, not used to being interrupted mid-speech. That's 20 points a stocky counselor started until Todd raised his hand and pointed at me. What's your question? A few people hissed and whispered among themselves, disapproving of my interruption. What other creatures could we not fathom? I asked. What? The stocky counselor said. Why would that matter? Again, Todd raised his hand to quiet him. I could see the crow's feet next to his eyes in the firelight now as he leaned closer. Not many kids catch that part. It looked important to you, I answered. He nodded. After eyeing the other kids in the circle of firelight, he held his hands out to the fire. These woods are home to many different animals and nature, none as mysterious or divinely blessed as the woodland spirits. I could hear exasperated sighs echoing through the darkness. Todd ignored them. These spirits keep this forest strong and protected. If you've noticed the lush greenery and clear water that we've all been blessed to partake, you've witnessed their work in all its glory. Even every little berry you'll find is pure and hearty to eat. This forest could sustain us all if only we do our part in respecting nature and her spirit's work. Okay, thank you, Todd. A female counselor with bleached blonde hair and fake spray tan hiding a bad sunburn put her hand on his shoulder, only to quickly take it back, remembering the PEA rules. I think that's a good place to end the night. Remember to respect each other and build each other up, just like Todd taught us. We'll dismiss the girls first and then the boys right after. See you all bright and early for a new week of camaraderie. Remember, tomorrow is the photo scavenger hunt, so get lots of good rest. The girls all stood and filed out towards their cabins. In the dark and silent movement, Danny found her way to me and passed me a note on the way out. I held on to it until we were dismissed after them. I didn't dare open it until everyone in my cabin was fast asleep. Under my covers, I unfolded the page torn from her purple journal. Meet me at the edge of the river, halfway through free time. Bring your swimsuit. My stomach flopped around in anticipation and fear. Every day we had 2 hours of free time between scheduled activities and meals. She and I had tried to find any time we could to at least catch up and hang out all week, but everywhere we went was under the heavy eyes of not only the adults, but the kids as well. While the river was usually open for all to enjoy, it would be closed tomorrow since the lifeguard would be helping set up the scavenger hunt. It was perfect, but still risky. I lay there all night, holding her note and dreaming of cold water swallowing us both. Morning meals and activities couldn't have gone by slower. I had to keep myself from making eye contact with Danny to keep anyone from growing suspicious, but that didn't stop my fist from clenching. By the time free time could come to fruition, my palms were bruised by my fingernails biting into them too often. I slid my swimsuit on under my clothes after all the boys had vacated from the cabin and tried to look as casual as I could, carrying a book that I had no plans on reading down to the river with me. Danny wasn't there yet. I sat in the rocks bordering the shore, admiring the sun sparkling against the gentle ripples cascading deeper into the woods. I was tempted to jump in early, but held my own against the heat beating down on my head. After 10 minutes of waiting, I started to get worried. Had she been caught? Maybe I should have gone back to make sure she wasn't being sent home for bad behavior. Suddenly, a snap and pop of a bush being pushed aside woke me from my panic. What are you doing out in the open? Danny scolded, taking my hand and pulling me into the brush, but smiling all the same. I found a special spot for us. She held my hand the whole way. I didn't realize how much I'd missed her until the warmth of her hand seeped into mine. A familiar warmth that burned combined with the heat of the sun, but a burning that I tolerated just to keep her close. You have no clue how much I missed you, I whispered to her. You've seen me all week, she retaliated, but I could see her blush creep through her sunburnt nose. She wasn't the best at expressing her appreciation or affection towards others through words, but her actions spoke volumes louder than anyone could express, as proven by her pushing the last few branches aside and revealing our oasis. A shaded spot under the canopy of long branches heavy with dense green leaves that drifted into the clear water below. 2 beach towels were spread on the rocky shore, surrounded by berry bushes and moss. Danny kicked off her shoes and tore off her sweaty shirt, revealing her own swimsuit that she'd cleverly hidden as well. Before I could follow her example, she was already in the water and splashing me. I tossed my book aside and joined her. Those beautiful 45 minutes, we were alone. just like every other summer. It started with laughter and occasional griping about how horrible this camp was compared to the others, but after a while, we grew tired and simply floated. My eyes were closed as the sun wove in and out of the leaves above us. The spirits would be unhappy. I opened my eyes again and turned to see Danny with her arms wrapped around her knees and looking at the opposite shoreline. "You believe Todd?" She shrugged. "If they were out there, I'm not surprised that they left. This camp isn't very loving or nurturing." I swam back and sat with her. "Do you want to go home early?" She shook her head. "Can't. The new baby takes priority." "Right." I passed a stone between my hands as the memories of my mom and dad bickering about his business trip crept through my mind. Danny slipped her hand into mine again. "I wish this could last forever." I didn't realize I had said it out loud until Danny mumbled in agreement. "How much longer do we have?" Instead of checking the watch that Danny had left on her beach towel, she stood up, splashed into the water, and swam further into the river. I smiled and swam after her. Once she reached the deepest end, I stopped, expecting her to turn around. She didn't. Instead, she swam even further, closer and closer to the opposite bank. I picked up the pace and met her there a while after she dragged herself out. "Hunting for spirits?" I joked, pulling myself up too. She didn't respond. "Are you okay?" "Something's here." "Where? What is it?" Danny took a step toward the thicket, deeper into the forest, when a roaring eruption of water flew up behind us. If we weren't soaked already, we would have been as the column of water settled back into its rhythmic pattern against the shore. Where the column had pierced through the river, now stood a creature that made Danny and I stand agape in awe. It was almost like a centaur, if a centaur were 3 times the size of a full-grown man. Its horns were made of branches peeled dry of its bark like the stick I had skinned at the bonfire. Moss draped over its shoulders and chest and flowed over its stag-like body in a way that looked like broken wings being dragged beside its muscular cloven legs. The patchy fur that remained on its body was muddied and sprouted with shelf fungi. But its face was what caused me to pull Danny closer. A flat wooden mask with the beak of a robin and round eyes of a cornered rabbit stared down at us, completely expressionless. Its long furry neck stretched longer after seeing us, squinting up at it through the piercing rays of sunlight. The mask eclipsed the sun, leaving a soft halo surrounding it. It cocked its head and drew its arms out of its mossy cloak and around to its stomach, clasping them, much like how Danny was doing. I felt Danny relax a little in my grip after seeing this. She took a step forward. I wanted to pull her back, but was sure this thing could overpower both of us however it wanted to. I stepped forward with her, making sure we all stood at the same distance. The least I could do was plan an exit strategy should dealing with this creature go awry. Danny raised her hands in front of her. In her palms was a small handful of berries she had taken from the bushes behind us. Had she known this would happen? The creature's long torso bent slowly toward us like a tree under the weight of a child. It took the berries in its lanky human fingers. Instead of bringing them to its mouth, which I thought it couldn't reach, it brought the berries around to its side. Pulling the cloak away, I saw a deep, rotted gash revealing pure white ribs beneath it. It smashed the berries into the rot. We all watched in nauseating fascination as the skin beneath the jam crawled back in order over its ribs, eating away at the rot and leaving a deep purple stain where the wound once was. It slowly bent its head over Danny again. "How did you know to do that?" I whispered. The creature bent over me. Danny squeezed my hand tightly, almost painfully. This creature was demanding an offering from me. I looked around and saw a shiny white pebble on the ground next to me. I ever so slowly grabbed it and presented the stone to it. I took the stone and observed it intently, examining it from all angles, then finally bending its willowy neck down to meet it. Its hand slipped beneath the mask, and a sickening echoed across the water. It rose back to its full height and admired us both. "How did you know to do that?" Danny asked, equally confused. I don't know," I whispered back. "I just thought it might need it." After staring intently down at us for a long, breathless moment, the creature's arms disappeared into its cloak, and it backed into the water. Its hooves sank into the rocks beneath, kicking up dust and silt, as it slowly sank beneath the riverbed. The water pushed through the muddled fur, covering its neck until the only thing left was its mask, floating where it once stood. Danny and I stood, frozen, staring. A sudden slithering sound made us jump. A small bush pushed through the kicked-up dirt and cradled the mask in its blooming branches. Small green flowers unfolded and kaleidoscoped into small beds for bright orange berries. Danny stepped closer and plucked one. She flipped it over in her hand and spotted a vibrant red spot on the back. Are they good? She shook her head. Bright red means poison. Oh, that's a weird way of saying thank you. We stayed there for longer than we should have, but after the sudden realization of how long it had been, we both swam back and hastily dried off. The wrath of the counselors scolding us for being tardy suddenly felt pathetic next to this sudden discovery. Still, we made sure to leave one after the other so we wouldn't waste time with being disciplined for pairing off. I kept the mask hidden in my shirt to show Todd at dinner. The cafeteria was crowded as always and smelled of cast iron and cornstarch. I didn't even bother to look at what was being served. My excited stomach couldn't handle the thought of food. After seeing Danny get settled at our table equally empty-handed with no appetite, I made a beeline for Todd's table. He usually sat alone at a small table by the window. I had seen some kids pass by and hesitate a moment as he tried to make conversation, but they all nervously shuffled back to their own tables, not wanting to lose points over a kooky spirit believer. I weaved between tables and pulled up a chair right next to him. "Have you ever seen these spirits before?" I asked him. Todd stared up at me, surprised by my boldness, until a smile grew across his face. "I have. Beautiful creatures, those spirits, just like nature herself." The mask clattered on the table as I pulled it from my shirt. Were they wearing this? His half-lidded eyes went from me to the mask. He gently and quietly took the mask and pulled it into his lap where no one could see it and whispered, "Where did you get this?" It was a gift, or maybe a tool, I'm not sure. Whatever it is, some spirit was wearing it and left it in a bush for me. Todd tapped a knuckle against his lips and nodded. "What did it look like?" "Antlers, long neck, human torso and arms, and the torso and legs of a deer, all covered in moss and mushrooms." Yeah, I know that one." I waited for more of a response, but Todd just took a long sip of water. "So, what is it? Why would it appear to me?" "What kind of berry bush did it grow?" "None that I've seen. Orange with red." "How did you know it was a berry bush?" Todd shrugged. "That's how these spirits work. Their gifts are practical." "Then why would it give me a poisonous berry bush?" "Do you need to poison someone?" I slowly shook my head. Todd picked up the knife from his tray and started carving into his potatoes. "Then my guess is the spirit needed to poison someone. Multiple someones. And since you refuse to help, you'll be part of a nature's reckoning." He arranged his potatoes into a pattern on his plate. "What reckoning?" Todd kept sawing away at his food as he explained. "These woods have been plagued by what were once disciples of nature itself." He gestured at the cafeteria and everyone in it. "Now they laugh at the mention of her name. It is time these parasites were eradicated." "Wait." I spoke before I even realized I had. "You mean the counselors and campers? Couldn't the spirits just reveal themselves to them like they did us?" Todd let out a dark laugh. "Revealing themselves proved to be eventful in all the ways nature would abhor." He stabbed his knife into his plate. "Find yourself out of the way, and you may be spared." "But," I cut in, "we are humans, creatures of nature ourselves. Destroying everyone would be destroying nature." Todd cocked his head in a way that made me push my chair further back. "Even the deer destroys and is disciplined for its destruction. None are spared from nature's wrath. If you wish to be overlooked, find her the easiest way to eradicate in the least destructive manner. Her thanks will be greater the greater the assistance." I slowly stood up and started backing away. The food on his plate was in the shape of the spirit with the knife wiggling right where its old wound had been. Todd nodded solemnly. "I see. Well, if that's the offer she gave you, It will have to be the offer you take. Nature's wrath is completely unavoidable by all standards, if she even deems you worthy of a way out. Her way is the only way. You have to take it. I opened my mouth to ask him how he knew about the spirit's wound, until coughing and sputtering echoed across the cafeteria's concrete walls. A girl with tight braids was bent over her tray, desperately trying to balance it with one hand and covering her mouth with the other. All the other kids stared as she slumped to the floor, her food sprawling across another kid's feet. 2 counselors ran to her side and cradled her body, checking her throat for any stuck food. Another coughing fit interrupted them from another kid at a corner table. Another kid fell from his chair, his eyes glazed over. 2 other girls fell just as they were trying to get water. Danny's and my eyes met from across the room. Hers, wide and desperate, searched mine in disbelief and fear. I felt Todd stand up next to me. Her way is the only way. He slid the mask over his face and walked out of the cafeteria as a counselor doubled over, followed by 2 more. I ran across the room and grabbed Danny's hand, but she pulled away, almost tripping on the counselor at her table. What's going on? She pleaded. Todd, he knew. He knew about the spirit. He knows about the poison. My fingers shook as I pointed toward the door. Todd knew about the poison? Either the spirit found him and offered him the same berries, or he found the bush right after we did, but that makes no sense. Did he say anything about seeing these spirits before? I pointed at my face. The mask. He'd seen the mask before. He knew about the gash in its side, too. I bet he caused it. Caused it? Why would he have attacked it? I don't know. Self-defense? Sport? He cared so much about nature and the spirits. I shook my head. No, that wasn't care. That was fear. The spirits must have had him near death and offered him a chance to live by telling him to poison everyone here. But why poison them? The reckoning. What? I explained what Todd had told me about the camp, no longer respecting nature and wanting to exterminate everyone here. Danny nodded along, looking over the sea of unconscious bodies now surrounding us. Eerie silence settled over everything. What do we do now? Danny asked. Call 911? With what phones? Right. No technology. I desperately looked outside and saw Todd walking out into the misty woods, the mask still hiding his face. That spirit caused this. It has to be able to fix it. We burst through the doors and ran after Todd, only to watch him disappear into the fog. Plunging in after him and breaking through the brush led us back to the oasis where we had hidden. On the other side of the bank was the creature. The creature, now without its mask. A flat, wrinkled deer face with one bright white eye shone down on Todd. Todd stood before it, removing his mask and kneeling. It has been done. I will humbly take nature's mercy. The creature bowed its head to meet Todd's and pressed its almost human-looking forehead against his. Its single eye grew brighter. Suddenly, Todd started screaming. Smoke rose out of his mouth and he collapsed onto the pebbles below. Danny's hand was pressed against her own mouth to stifle a scream. Mine was wide open in horror. The bright white eye shot up to us. Danny's hand flew into mine and we sprinted back through the brush. Branches slashed through our faces and arms. The fog only let us see a few feet in front of us until I crashed into a charred pile of wood. Danny tripped to a stop and threw the blackened sticks off of me. We were in the old fire pit where the bonfire had been held last night. I went to sit up, but a sharp pain stabbed through my ribs. Danny heard me scream between the sticks and dug faster when an overwhelming silence paralyzed both of us. The spirit slowly strode through the fog, peacefully, not in any hurry. Danny shook as its eye gleamed in a rainbow halo. I pawed at the last few sticks on me and tried to sit up again, gritting my teeth through the deep aches. Danny, I rasped. Danny took off. I could hear her running behind me, away from the spirit, away from me. I couldn't help but feel hurt, betrayed, but she had to do it in order to survive. I sat up more. Now that I was moving, I could feel that a metal s'more poker was buried in the ashes below me. That must have been what stabbed me. My hand was warm against my side, but still I moved as fast as I could. Even that wasn't fast enough to escape the woodpile before the spirit stood directly over me. Its head, its piercing eye, loomed over my charcoal-stained body. The bright light froze me in place. This was it. This was all I could do. Buy Danny more time before the spirit caught up to her, too. I squeezed my eyes shut against the light as the spirit brought its head closer. I felt its breath against my face. Humid, but soft. And then a scream of 1,000 different animals filled the air around us. I smelled gasoline and putrid smoke. Wrenching my eyes open again, I saw a tall, billowing flame in front of me. The air stung my eyes, but even through the tears I could see the spirit kicking at the fire, crawling over its moss cloak and fur. Danny tossed the gas can aside and grabbed me up out of the woodpile. She wrapped her arm around me and half carried me away from the giant flames. The trees around us were already catching. The wails and cries of the spirit filled my head. The smell of its nauseous fur burning away made me gag and choke. But still, despite her coughing, Danny still dragged me away towards the cafeteria. Once inside, she propped me against a chair and delved inside to find a med kit. The sight outside the windows was harrowing. Flames licked at the tips of tree branches. Black smoke billowed and turned gray in the sky above. We would have to move fast if we didn't want to get caught in a forest fire. After a few minutes of watching the carnage take place, Danny appeared with a red first aid kit and tore through it to find a roll of gauze. It took us a few tries with both of our hands shaking so horribly, but we were able to wrap it around my torso in a way that stopped the bleeding. Danny mumbled something about potential broken ribs just as the lightheadedness started to kick in. I felt her arms around me, lowering me to the floor. Then darkness overtook me. I woke up in the hospital. The nurses told me that Danny and I had been unlucky enough not to get the food poisoning that had knocked everyone else out. We may have been able to avoid the forest fire that way. It sounded like everyone else had been able to escape safely after reviving from their poisoned comas. And no one found out that it was Danny who had started the fire. The incident had scared multiple campers' parents, including our own, enough to pull us all out of that camp for good. However, when Danny visited me, she didn't look as ecstatic about never dealing with spiritual threats ever again. When I asked her why, all she said was, there was no body. And in her hand was the smooth white stone of that once bright white eye.